I appreciate you being here on time and getting ready for our next speaker. Sarah Morehead is the Executive Director of the Reason Rally.
Recovering
from religion.
Mm-hmm.
I told her to probably get that mixed up. And the President of Apostacon. See, I don't write stuff down, you know. And third one.
President of the Reason Rally Coalition.
President of the Reason Rally Coalition. Okay. So, also, Sarah's real awesome. She helped me with the scheduling of this too, to get people on the schedule for today, tomorrow, and yesterday. So that was, with her insight, that was very valuable. She's just really good speaker, and you're really gonna enjoy her. Here's Sarah Morehead.
All right, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah, everybody? Okay. All right. So I'm Sarah Morehead. I'm the Executive Director for Recovering from Religion, and I obviously do a lot of other stuff, but that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. What we do at Recovering from Religion is we provide practical resources for people who are transitioning away from a religious belief system. So what that looks like is programs and resources, links, articles, anything we can do to connect people who are questioning, who have doubts in their faith and they're kind of done going to their religious resources, and really pipelining them into the secular movement as it applies to them. There's a story behind all of this that for Recovering from Religion has really affected all of us. It's the starfish story. Every morning, a young man went jogging on the beach, and every morning he saw a woman picking starfish from the sand and tossing them into the water. One day he asked her why, and she explained that the starfish will die if left in the sand to bake in the hot sun. The man shook his head, but there are thousands of them every single day. You can't possibly save them all. This won't even make a difference. The woman looked down at the starfish in her hand and tossed it into the ocean. She smiled and said, "It makes a difference to this one." And that, in a nutshell, is what we do. Recovering from Religion is based on some pretty basic principles. We are not an evangelical atheist organization. We are not a deconversion organization. Now, it does tend to happen naturally when people are asking questions and they're looking for a comfortable place to talk to someone without being coerced back into their faith system or a different faith system. But we meet people where they're at, and we help them understand where they want to go. So essentially, when you grow up in religion, how many people here grew up in a religious background? Whoa, hi. Most of you know then, when you grow up in a religious background, what happens is you're told what to think, you're told what to believe, you're told where to look for answers. So we've basically taken that entire model and flipped it on its head. People come to us and we do not tell them what to think, we do not tell them what they need to believe or what outcome they should have. And we do not necessarily say this is going to give you the answers you want. We say these things, these resources, these articles, these books, these people you can talk to, explore the topics that you're exploring. And we want you to find out what works for you. It's very important to us that we help people understand that it's not a binary situation. It's not that you're just a believer or not a believer. Most people go through a very broad process. They go from one end of the spectrum of disbelief to the other. So they might start out as monotheists. Maybe they believe in the Trinity, and we'll give them that. And as they're going along, they'll say things like, well, I've decided that all religions are valid. I'm just finding the one that works for me. It's obviously more of a polytheistic a pantheistic comment. Thank you. I'm tired. Sorry about that. Pluralistic, that's what I was going for. But the other thing we help them understand is, this idea of the agnostic versus the Gnostic and the theist versus the atheist, that it's not just a binary one side or the other. There's ways to be in this entire spectrum and figure out where you're at. So in all of this, we have a bunch of programs. We have local groups that meet monthly all over the country, and they're spreading all over the world. We have online resources for people who are closeted, who are looking for somewhere that they can connect to someone, but maybe it's not safe in their area or safe in their home to do that. And as we were developing all of these resources, people were coming to us in droves calling our office line and emailing us and telling us their stories and trying to just find somebody that they could talk to. A lot of times they feel like they're the only people out there. They don't think anyone has ever left their faith before. A lot of times in religion, when someone leaves the faith, they're either just not talked about anymore, or they're talked about in terms of they're going to come back eventually, they're backslid, they're away from the cross, those kinds of things. But the idea of just not believing anymore is not something that is widespread discussed. So we came up with the Hotline Project. And what that is an 800 number that people can call and talk to our trained volunteers. And what they do is help people just kind of explore all of this. It's kind of like they're getting to a point in a map where they know there's more out there, but they just don't know what or where, and it's all kind of dark. And we don't sit there and say, this is where you need to go. We just say, you know what, we have a flashlight and we'll help you figure this out. So people are able to call us, ask us questions, whether they're believers, not believers, wherever they're at in the whole process. One of the things in that, with our training of our volunteers and how we treat everyone who calls us, really the bottom line for recovering from religion is conscience over creeds. The important thing with religion for us is that we see it as an unnecessary force. We're not trying to eradicate it, we're not trying to change people's minds, but we just see at best it's unnecessary. But we want people to start making a decision that treats humanity, their friends, their family, as more of a priority than their belief system. So things as simple as not treating someone different just because maybe they don't go to the same church, or as people are questioning all of this and broadening their worldview and they say, gosh, my pastor really preaches against gays and homosexuals and all of this, and I don't agree with that anymore. We might help them find a religious community in their area that makes sense to them. So as people are calling into the hotline, obviously, we need to make sure that our agents are trained. Every one of our agents go through a very extensive screening process, and then they go through 10 to 12 hours of training in order to be able to man the phones. The first thing that we teach our agents how to do is recognize and validate the hierarchy of needs. This is not a crisis phone line. If people are calling us and they're having problems with housing or suicide or domestic violence or any of those things, we teach them how to risk those calls out and get them transferred to a hotline that's better suited to meet those needs, and they're welcome to call us back after we get them settled. We teach our agents how to focus on appropriate boundaries. A lot of times people are calling because, again, they just need someone to talk to. Now, at the same time, this isn't like a standard call center. So we don't have a cap on how long these calls can last, and we don't have a requirement of what all needs to happen on these calls. We have structured expectations. So we have things like creating an action plan with the caller. So we help them understand, what steps they're going to take next, even if the next steps they're going to take are as simple as, I'm going to read through this link you sent me, and I'll give you a call back next week. But little pieces. We help them learn how to keep their own personal bias out of the entire process. Why is that important? I said at the beginning we are not an evangelical atheist organization, and that is really one of the core tenets of what we're about. We have all kinds of people volunteering on our hotline, people who are actually pretty well known in the secular community, who are very anti-theistic in their shows or on their podcasts. We have closeted active preachers. You guys heard about the Clergy Project a little bit ago. We have 3 active preaching ministers on our hotline. So they preach on Sundays, they lead their Bible studies on Wednesday night, and then they're on our phones. But we've taught them how to work with people who call in a way that respects the caller. One of the things that's very important to us is making sure that people understand, whether you're the person who's calling or the person with the volunteer on the other end of the line, that your worth is not defined by what people say or how people choose to treat you. Boundaries are a really crucial part of recovering from religion. It's very important to us that everyone feels like they have the right to be respected. That leads us to our most common question, which is, what about the trolls? It's very simple. In the first 6 weeks of the hotline, we got over 1,000 phone calls. 5% of those were tagged as troll calls. Harassing, obscene, sexualized, those kinds of things. It's a pretty low number. The reason that is pretty simple. We train our agents how to take those calls that come in aggressively and either turn them around into a productive call. Because a lot of times people hear about what we're doing and they call because they're very reactionary, they're emotional, they're angry, so they call us wanting to know what the holy hell we think we're doing. But really what's going on is it's rattling them a little bit, it's scaring them. There's something about what we're doing that they don't understand. And when we can take that caller and we can find out what those questions are and we can then send them information, a lot of times at the end of that call it's turned around. They're going to go read that information, they're going to learn more, and then they'll follow up later. So that's why we don't have too many of those. We also don't engage a whole lot. If someone is calling just to fight, we just end the call. One of the biggest questions we get is, what about hell? People who have left a very fundamentalist religious belief, for whatever reason, even when they're past the point of believing in God, they've decided there's no supernatural out there, they will still hold on to this fear of hell. It terrifies them, it keeps them up at night. That's one of our most frequent topics, whether it's in our support groups, on our hotline, on our online groups. So we empower them to start disconnecting from those beliefs as emotionally, so they're not as reactionary to it, it's not triggering them as much. The other thing we'll do is we'll refer people to the Secular Therapist Project if we can see that they're having issues beyond what they're able to handle with just a call. So I've got a few transcripts here I want to read to you guys, and I know you've probably heard a couple of them this morning, but I want to make sure that you guys are able to hear from the people who are calling us what this is about and why they're calling. I've been so careful about hiding secular stuff from my dad, but he saw my Dawkins book today. He preached at me for hours, and I've had panic attacks ever since. While he was talking, I kept tracing words like logic, love, and RR on my arm. I didn't feel so alone, and it distracted me a little. I've been an atheist for 6 months. My wife is upset. Our priest bugs her about why I'm not at church. He says if I don't believe anything, I can't be a good dad to our son. And you can hear him kind of start to choke up. I'm getting scared. She's starting to believe him. Everyone at church looks down on me. I feel so alone. I'm still the same person. I just don't think what they're doing is right anymore. I'm still me. Why can't they see that? I don't know what to do. I think my husband knows I'm questioning all of this. He'll make me leave if he finds out. I can't lose my kids, but I don't know how long I can keep this up. And this one, the lady identified as Mormon, she's still a believer. She's dealing with all these doubts. She's dealing with all these questions. She didn't have anywhere else to turn, so she called us. I'm 16. Is it okay to talk to you? And of course the agent reassures them that it is. I'm so scared of going to hell. I have nightmares that I'm on fire. My dad says that's God warning me. I don't think it's God though. Is that bad? I don't believe in his God anymore. Isn't that an interesting way to say that? When I was a kid, I loved my Legos. I didn't even make them, but I loved them, so I took care of them. But the hell stuff, that's pretty bad. 16 years old, wrestling with existential issues. He can't talk to his dad, so he's calling us. My parents said they won't let anyone in their house who doesn't accept Christ, even if it's their own kids. They don't know. You can hear the crying get louder. I want to tell them, I have to tell them, they'll still love me, won't they? I'm so scared, I don't know what to do. And the agent says, I'm here to help you. How old are you? She said, I'm 12. 12 years old. She heard about the hotline because her parents were watching the CBS show about the atheists. And then they had a Bible study talking about what would happen if someone in their family became a non-believer. And she heard them. And she had decided already that this was not something that she could believe in anymore. She just hadn't had the guts to tell them. So she called us. In that situation, and in any situation where we're contacted by a minor child, we strongly encourage them to just sit on that disbelief for a little bit. We don't want to put them in a situation where they're being abandoned or pushed out of their home, and that happens a lot. So we remind them they're probably still going to be atheists in a few years. But it's okay to get through college first. Ultimately, we want people to understand one simple thing. We are not sinners, we are not abominations. We were not born broken, and we do not need salvation. We have embraced our right to think beyond the boundaries of religion. We are living and loving a life free from faith. Thank you. Questions? Any questions? Yep.
How would one go about volunteering for recovering?
What a fantastic question. That's my favorite. I didn't even plant that one. It just worked. It was perfect. So if you're interested in supporting us, a couple things. One, we are in need of financial support. So if you're not able to donate your time, we encourage you to go to our website and make a tax-deductible donation today. You can also go to our website and sign up to volunteer. We have a pretty thorough application process. We had to upgrade our application process to weed out an incredible amount of Jesus applications. So we have things like you have to put your references and stuff like that. We'll go through your application, and then you'll be scheduled for an interview, go through the interview process, and then depending on what programs you want to volunteer for, you'll go into a training program, then go through the training. As far as the hotline project goes, you're paired up with a mentor who walks you through the process and helps you learn how to take the calls. You'll take some non-live calls. You'll take some live calls with supervisors and a mentor, and then you'll move on to taking them on your own. And we have people from around the community who we rally in to call and do sample calls, so they're a lot of fun. Other questions? Yes, sir. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. You know how sometimes Unitarianism is considered like Christianity light. I wondered if callers ever, or in dealing with their families, ever feel like they need to use the word agnostic or humanist rather than atheist, because atheist still is such a dirty word. I know people have different definitions of those, but it's what perceptions.
Absolutely. So her question is, what about people who are calling in that may be non-believers but don't necessarily use or identify with the atheist terminology? And our answer to that is absolutely whatever works for you. We're not here to define you. We're here to empower you to figure out who you are. That's really the important thing. And a lot of times people will go through stuff with us and then they come out of it going, that whole labeling thing is just not for me. I don't really care. Or they'll say, I'm a deist. There's something out there, but whatever. We don't care. That's not really what we're trying to do. We're really just trying to get people to a point that they feel comfortable, that there's not a dogmatic belief system dictating their personal life, their private life, their sex life, their marriage, their finances, all those things. So if we can help them get to that point, then however they want to identify is absolutely something we encourage them to do.
Can you share some more about the statistics, like average duration of calls and how many calls you take and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. So average duration of calls really varies widely. It depends on really the type of caller. Anywhere from a 5 or a 10-minute call all the way to we've had calls as long as 2 hours, because we don't have a cap for our agents. As long as they're in a productive call, as long as they're in control of the call, so it's not a troll situation, sometimes people just need somebody to talk to. And that's just the way it is. So we really don't hammer into them, you have to get off the phone by this time or anything like that. All the more reason we need more agents, because sometimes if our lines get tied up, we get inundated with calls, and then of course everything has to route around to the hold. And the hold music is Shelley Siegel, if anybody knows her. She's fantastic and it's great, but they do actually want to talk to somebody. So, and then we'll get you, I know you've had your hand up for a minute.
Thanks for what you do.
Absolutely.
I want to honor you in terms not of what you talked about today, but about the Secular Therapist Project. That sucker works.
Appreciate that.
And then I want to ask you a question. And that is, on the website you offer a class, or I think you offer a class about human sexuality.
Yep.
How does a person actually sign up for that class?
Sure.
When I tried to sign up for it, I didn't get any of the proper response that would allow me to know
whether you were in or not.
There was going to be one or not.
Okay. So the gal that we have recovering your blank, blank, blank classes. And one of the classes is recovering your sexuality. And it's run by a gal who has a master's degree in human sexuality. And she's basically helping people, whether they're believers or non-believers, kind of deal with the baggage and holdovers that religion can influence in people's sexuality and personal lives. So the question of how to get involved and be a part of the next class, kind of just have to watch the website. My guess is that when you went in to register, the class was probably already closed and it just didn't carry over. And she's doing a bunch of other projects, so she does the class about 4 times a year. We're hoping to be able to get more going because there is a really high demand for those. But if you want to find me later and get me your email address, then I'll make sure and get you on the list so that when we open them back up, we let you know. This gentleman's had his hand up for a while, so I'm going to do him, then we'll go to you. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Quick plug for the St. Louis Recovering from Religion group. We meet once per month, fourth Sunday of every month at the Ethical Society, followed by a question. Could you tell us about how to get involved in a local group and what those kind of meetings are like?
Absolutely. So the local groups are pretty easy and a lot of fun. It's essentially a peer support group, which means everybody just kind of gets together and talks about how they're being impacted by religion or faith or deconversion or any of that in their lives. So we've got groups all over the country. We have them obviously here in St. Louis. We have them as far away as South Africa, just everywhere. And we have Neil Carter is our group development director. Is he in here anywhere, or did he sneak out? Okay, he's at our table. I'm hoping. At any rate, so if you're interested in starting a group, let us know. They're 2 hours once a month is the minimum. It's about a 4 to 6 hour a month commitment. We have facilitator support networks, and with Neil on board, we're going to be developing that into a much more focused training program to give everybody as many skills as possible. But these are a lot of fun. Sometimes it's kind of heavy stuff, but it's a community where instead of just going out for a beer or whatever, these are people actually coming together and say, okay, I'm really dealing with this. Maybe over the holidays, trying to figure out how to navigate family and religion and in-laws or whatever. So it's just kind of a safe place to have those conversations.
Hi, is there a Canadian branch to this? Or is it just North America? Or?
Yeah, so it depends on what you're talking about. Our hotline project, we actually have volunteer agents all over the world, which helps us get staffing at weird hours. We have local groups that are in Canada. Again, we've got them in the UK, we've got them kind of everywhere. And that's part of it right now is we're in this huge explosive growth, so we're scrambling to stay on top of it. But yeah, it's everywhere. There's really no place that people are like, I don't need that, I'm not interested. We've got them in New York, we've got them in LA, they're just everywhere. A lot of people think it's just in the South, and it's really kind of one of those where anywhere you'll find a mega church, there's probably a recovering from religion group nearby.
Sarah, I was wondering, did you ever know You're My Hero? When you're not doing the recovering from religion and the secular therapist and the hotline, I understand you're also doing the Reason Rally. And what can we do to help make the Reason Rally happen this time?
Thank you. Fitz is way too kind to me. Okay, so yeah, I do a few other things. There's a couple projects I'm working on. Obviously, the Reason Rally is the thing you may have heard about. It's this little get-together we're going to do in DC in 2016. I don't know, anybody go to the last one? Look at that. So we're going to be announcing in about a week the date for the one in 2016. We've already got some really cool speakers lined up for it, and obviously we're going to be adding more. We've got a lot of exciting stuff with that. Watch the website because we're going to have volunteer forms there that are going to be oddly similar to the ones from Recovering from Religion because I don't like to reduplicate wheels. But people will be able to sign up and volunteer their time and obviously support that. And then if anyone else is interested, I also do a fun little thing called ApostaCon. It's going to be in Dallas. Dang, you guys are awesome. So ApostaCon is September 18th through the 20th, and if you guys like Penn and Teller, they're going to be there. We had Neil deGrasse Tyson last year. It's kind of a full weekend party, and it's cheap because I am. So it's a lot of fun. Anyone else? All right, I think we're good. It's time for dinner, folks. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.